Hey guys, welcome. This is Professor Joe Potuto, the best guest on YouTube. Hi, Professor. How are you?
I wouldn't say anything like that, Judy. You have a lot of guests on, and now you're going to have to explain yourself. But thank you. Fine.
Yeah. Okay, so the breaking news, which I just saw, we were getting so excited because there was supposed to be another hearing in December on the costs of prosecution. However, the court has now canceled it. No, what will we talk about? I mean, we're so obsessed with this case. I mean, Joe,
Uh-huh.
how often do you think about this Dan Markel case?
I do. I wouldn't say it's, continuous because there are a lot of things, that are going on in my life. And I'm sure it's the same for you. You have work and a family. But, it does impinge, when I'm walking or doing something where I'm not actually focused, I do kind of think about it. Uh, but it's going on so long, and it's just a tragedy. So I
Hmm.
do.
Yeah,
Oh, and I do look and see, some of the posts by people. So I definitely do that. So
yeah. And we're still waiting to see if Wendy will get arrested.
yeah.
I mean, do you feel pessimistic about that at this point?
No, well, no, not yet. Mainly because I do think that there's enough evidence. I think it will be a difficult prosecution unless they have evidence we haven't seen. Uh, but I think it's a doable prosecution, and I think the prosecutors really owe it to Dan Markel and the family to go ahead with it. I do not believe they think she's not complicit. And so
Exactly.
I think they do believe she's complicit. I think there is enough evidence to go forward. They've had success in the other prosecutions. So I'm still expecting them to do it. I will be very disappointed if they don't, because maybe unfairly, I'll admit that it might be unfair, but I will believe that they didn't do it because they thought they got the major players and they were just tired of the case and wanted to move on. And if that's the reason, I think that's a pretty sad reason for not doing it.
That's right. Because Dave Ehrenberg gave me hope again when he was on the show with you on Surviving the
Yeah.
Survivor. Yeah, I kind of feel like that other attorney from California, he hasn't been paying as much attention to the
No.
case as you and Dave have.
And
So,
you.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we're obsessed. We watch everything, we read and dissect everything. We do a really, really deep dive as much as possible into everything that is public.
Right.
So, for someone who just kind of pops in to court TV or whatever, kind of like a talking head, I'm sure he has great qualifications. But in terms of this case, nah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to be rude and say stuff in the chat or anything, but I was like, oh, rolling my eyes.
Well,
Thank
but
God
he
you
is.
and Dave were there.
Yeah, he is giving you a view of probably a very capable, I'm sure, very capable criminal lawyer who's done prosecutions and defense. So what he did give was some insight, I think, into how the prosecutor goes about deciding whether to go forward. Now, one of his reasons Dave corrected him on, which was that Georgia might talk about the case, and Dave correctly said that she talked about it the last time too, and it didn't prevent the state from going after Donna. The other thing that gives me hope with regard to Dave is being the county prosecutor is at least in part, if not in large part, a political position. You're responsive to the public. You get elected. You've got your finger on the pulse in terms of how you operate the office. Now, that's not to say that they don't go after it legally, that they don't make ethical and well-reasoned decisions about what they do, but there is a political component, and Dave is clearly aware of it. And Dave said on an earlier STS that he was, at that time he said sure, because of Luis Rivera on the stand. that Lewis had mentioned Wendy's name. And I think I was on that show because I said, well, Lewis never met her. And he said, it doesn't matter. Once her name got out, the prosecutor is going to have to go forward. So he's talking about it not just from assessing the case on its legal merits, but from running an office and the political responsiveness of that office. So I really think he's got, a good, really more than I do, and probably more than you do, because that component, I've never run a prosecutor's office. I've never run for election as prosecutor. It's not something that's, sort of in my DNA, but it's certainly in his. So that's another reason why, I'm still confident that it will happen.
Yeah. And
How
so
about
is
you? Are
Judy.
you still confident?
Well, I'm still confident, but I'm thinking, what are they waiting for? Some people said it could be because they're waiting to see if Dukin is going to become a judge.
Yeah.
So, did you hear that?
Well,
That
she's up,
rumor?
she had, that she has her name in
Hmm.
for either, I think, county or district court in Florida, in Tallahassee. I actually think that's not a bad guess because she's really familiar with the case. And if they're prepared to go forward and they think they're going to lose the second chair who's handled the technical evidence. She was the person who questioned Corbett on the stand. And so, and that's that evidence is really, going through and getting familiar with, reams of technical evidence and getting a real feel for how you present it and what kinds of things you have to ask. I think it's harder than, interviewing 2 or 3 fact witnesses. And so I think it would be prudent of them not to indict, because then the speedy trial clock ticks in case the defense wants to, assert it. Prudent of them to wait to see whether Sarah is going to be able to participate in the case or whether they're going to need somebody else who will have to get up to speed. So whoever suggested that, and I've thought of it myself, actually, I think that's a pretty good guess as to what might be doing it. Plus, they have other cases. And when when you put on a case like this, you have to put everything else aside. It's not that you don't care about the other cases. It's that you can't do a big trial and keep track of the other cases at the same time. So, there may be a backlog of things that Georgia Kappelman has to deal with and look at. And the victims of those crimes deserve somebody who's going to give full attention and not delay also. So I think, maybe a mix of things. So I'm not, I'm not worried that it's taking so much time. I am anxious that it's taking so much time because I really would like to see them go forward with Wendi. And I agree with Phil Markel when he said in his victim impact statement, he wanted everybody who was involved in this crime to be brought to justice. And he's not talking about Charlie and Donna, and the others, because they've already been brought to justice. He's talking about Wendi and probably Harvey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, here's another idea I had, because remember, the authorities respected the Markel's upcoming visit with the kids by putting off Charlie's arrest until after their visit back in 2022.
Oh, I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Ruth Markel said that. It's in her book. So since they respected the Markel's wishes in that, I'm thinking maybe they would wait until the kids' school semester is over.
Oh, God.
And winter break starts, do you think? Because if I were the grandparent, I would be concerned about the effect on the grandchildren. And if they have final exams or something,
that's true.
why would you want their mom to be arrested right when they're getting ready for
But that, if you're
exams.
talking about only the arrest, that would suggest arresting quickly, right after, the first semester is over.
Yeah,
If you're
which would
talking
be
about
December.
graduation,
Yeah,
one of them is a couple of years away, maybe both of them. How old
yeah,
are they now? 16 and
15 and
15?
16.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the 16-year-old is what? A
11th.
junior,
Yeah,
right?
junior.
So he's got the rest of this year and next year, and the 15-year-old has another year. Um, yeah, there's an impact on them clearly, but I think it's outweighed by, Mr. Geiger's getting older, a couple of the law enforcement people now, one of them, Mr. Corbett has already retired. It looks
Yeah.
like Sanford may retire in another year.
Wow.
Isom retired. I mean, those are considerations as to getting this trial done. And I think for me, as much as I'm sympathetic to the boys, I think they outweigh, those considerations
Yeah.
outweigh.
Yeah, you're right. It's already been, what, 11 years
Amazing,
plus
right?
since Dan was murdered.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, so I was thinking, well, even if Sarah Catherine Dugan becomes a judge, there was another attorney, I think his name is Eddie Evans, who is also working behind the scenes on the case. So why couldn't he just fill in? I
Maybe he
feel
would
like,
be the one that they would pick, but I think it's, you're a trial attorney.
sort
And
of.
you've done a lot of trials. I've done a few trials. I think it's still different when you're working behind the scenes helping and when it's now your job to
Mhm.
get the witness prepared and go through. Now, you're right. He can watch the the videos of the trials and see how Sarah presented it and what she did. So he's got a head start clearly, but it's still not the same as Sarah going in and doing it again.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So I guess, we're like Monday morning quarterbacks here saying, no, you just get in there and do it. You've been handling this case since 2019 or 2018
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something before the first trial of Sigfredo and Katie.
Yeah.
So we want to see it. Whereas who knows what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned that, people are getting old and retiring and stuff, well, somebody brought up the jailhouse informant who had said Sigfredo was drunk one day and told him the Adelsons had previously tried to hire someone to kill Dan for 50K, but they got ripped off. So
Right.
that person, Nicholas Atteridge, unfortunately, he died.
Yeah.
And he was young. So, it is true. It's like as time goes on, Luis Garcia's memory isn't the best. And,
Luis
Katie's,
Rivera.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
even Luis is, like
Yeah.
he's not like the sharpest, but, it's just
Well,
kind of
go ahead. Sorry.
frustrating. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just frustrated with this
Yeah.
case
Even
sometimes.
Jeff's from, the last time around, remember before he would say that Wendy had told him that her brother wanted to hire a hitman and it was either 15 or $50,000. He didn't know which. This last time he just said $15,000. So
Mhm.
everybody's memory, goes as time goes on. It's true.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm anxious. I don't have to put on the case. I don't have to do any of these things. So you said Monday Munter quarterback. I don't even know if I'd give myself that
Well,
much credit. I'm a spectator who says,
yeah,
get
same here.
going. I mean,
Same here. So I'm sure they don't listen to us. They're just like, forget about this chatter. We're just focusing on our job.
well,
Forget these naysayers and people whining and saying
we're not whining.
incorrect
We're
info,
expressing correct
opinions.
opinions in a forceful way.
Yes.
That's not a whine.
Yeah.
I'm not whining. You're not whining.
Yes. Yes. That's a
Donna
good.
whines. We don't
Yeah.
whine.
Well, she whines and just spins things and lies about things.
Yes.
But yeah. Oh, here's another kind of wacky idea I had. I was thinking, why couldn't they hire mentor lawyer to help Georgia Cappleman? Because he's right there in Tallahassee. Like, there's nothing wrong with them extending a job to this local attorney. Whether he would do it or not, it's another question, but wouldn't that be fun? Because he's been covering this case like crazy. Although I guess he has shown lots of bias through his YouTube channel, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, prosecutors are entitled to be biased. They
Yeah.
think the person they're prosecuting is guilty. But I wonder if there wouldn't be an issue, and certainly one that even if you could prevail wouldn't be worth taking on. And that is, he's been active on YouTube, and one of the claims that each of them, Charlie made and Donna will make, is the impact of the publicity in the area. And it seems to me, if you're making that claim, you could certainly add on that one of the people who appears on YouTube associated with the case is now involved in the case, particularly if he was in the courtroom. Now, they don't have to put him at counsel table, but it seems to me that's just not, if I were thinking about it, I'd think long and hard before taking on something else that they could complain about, even if they didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I don't think
that's
they
true.
don't know. I mean, they know the case. I know that they need anybody's help to know the case. What they need is to get going on the case, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I have to address this because someone sent us a super chat. Thank you. Mentally stable dabbler. Hello, beautiful and intelligent ladies.
That's nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for not calling us cackling broads. Judy, be honest. Do you find stuttering John Melendez attractive? No. Don't worry, he can handle brutal honesty. Okay. No, but I don't think that's relevant. So, anyway, but thank you.
I don't even understand the reference.
Okay,
I'm
well,
sort of,
that's okay. I don't
all
want you to
right.
get
Okay.
dragged down into this stuff. So there's other things going on behind the scenes. So
Okay.
okay, let's get back to this case because this is what we're all excited over. Did you have time to read that reply brief?
I did. And, before we get into the merits, I will say I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, they
And
had to do something for the client.
And they did, I think, a very good job of making the argument. It was well written, I thought. I thought the arguments flowed. I didn't go look at all the cases, but I'm assuming that they cited the right cases. They didn't have typographical errors all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always happy to see really good lawyering. And I thought it was a very good job making the argument. And of course, if you only read their brief and did not read the state's brief, it's a pretty persuasive argument. But, with the state's brief and the other things that one could say that they don't say because they're on one side, that's where the case falls apart. But I really did think it was well done.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you? Did you think it was well done?
I mean, most people kept saying that Upperman is one of the best appellate attorneys in
Yeah.
the whole state. So it makes you wonder, who is Donna going to get that?
I asked that.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody say, well, it's going to be Josh Zellman. And I think the reason why that person said it was he signed the notice of appeal. But of course, somebody's got to,
Yeah.
get the clock, get it started before
Yeah.
they run out of time. I don't know. I obviously don't know lawyers in Florida. I don't know what they would do, what she would do about hiring a lawyer. You can always hire an experienced appellate lawyer from somewhere else, but then you have the issue of that lawyer not knowing Florida procedure. So I would assume if she went that route, she'd have to hire somebody else to be sure that they dot all the I's and cross all the T's with regard to Florida appellate and trial criminal procedure. But she's hired so many lawyers so far. I mean, I was going to count them this morning, just how many lawyers they've paid for. So what's another two rather than one?
Yeah, that's right. And don't forget that poor attorney that they screwed over trying to, they tried to bilk this law firm out of $10,000 back in, I don't know, 2016-ish,
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah.
And that firm had to sue Harvey and Donna to
Right.
get that $10,000.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that reminds me, Judy, of something I've been thinking about this case for quite a while. And it's not insightful because I'll bet most people in the chat and you have thought about it before. But the Adelsons, a lot of times, are portrayed as this family that went wacko. I mean, they were a stable, upper middle class family, like
five-star
everybody else's. And
family.
then this
Yeah,
issue drove Donna off the cliff. But when you look at their behaviors, I mean, trying to bilk the lawyer, filing lawsuits, I would say indiscriminately, and some of the other kinds of things they were doing. Charlie trying to buy that property in Vietnam and hide that he was the owner or one of the owners because a non-resident shouldn't be able to buy property in Vietnam. Charlie trying to get out of traffic tickets by claiming he was a surgeon or whatever he
or
said on the way to the hospital.
emergency room
Yeah.
doctor.
I mean, there are a lot of things we probably don't know most of them, but there are a lot of things that we know about their behaviors that would suggest anything but they were the upstanding family that just suddenly one day when they couldn't get the grandsons in Florida, you know, became this crazy family. I think there's a lot of information there that says they were always that way. Just the
Yes.
way that when you have somebody commit, a couple of murders and you have all the neighbors say, I don't understand it. He was quiet. He was nice. He was kind. And then you find out that that individual had, a lot of behaviors going on before he crossed, jump. I'm giving more analogies. I'm jumping off cliffs and so I'm going to stop.
No,
But you know what I
no.
mean?
We
Yeah.
love hearing your thoughts. People can't get enough of that case. That's why we're stuck on a Friday night here talking about it. So thank you for being willing to discuss this with us.
Oh, I'm happy to, and I love being on your channel with you. I say this to Judy off camera all the time, and I should say it more on camera. I think she is a great host, really informed. Uh, Everything that I see or hear that she does, she's a great lawyer, uh, and she's wonderful with her guests. I mean, you are just, I don't know what you could do better. You
Oh,
really are
speak better.
wonderful.
I can speak better because everybody keeps dogging on me for having speech problems now. And it's sad because, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, there was a very rude commenter who said, I need to take classes on public speaking. And, these medical problems just started coming up about 2 to 3 years
Yeah.
ago. But to tell you the truth, back in high school, I was the extemporaneous speaking champion for my high school. So, I've competed, I've spoken a lot. You can't become much of a litigator if you can't speak.
Exactly.
So that's why it does make me feel bad when people keep harping and saying, "Hey, something's wrong with you. Get off of YouTube."
You know,
I'm like, look, I wasn't always this bad and shaky. Okay, sometimes
hey,
it happens to people.
I know it's hard to ignore the criticism, and I'm going to find out more once I launch my
Yeah, you'll
channel.
see some nasty people out
But,
there.
it's like a
Thank you, Deborah.
whiteboard. It's all white, and there's one little black speck, and people focus on the speck. I mean, your voice clearly is not, you can tell that there's something off, but I don't find it off-putting at all. I
Thank you.
really don't.
I
And I think
try. I try.
what you say is 1,000 times more important than that you're not saying it with perfect vocal cords.
Yeah.
You
Well,
wouldn't
thank you.
trade, would you? Perfect voice and no brain?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Oh no,
at
you
least
would.
I can still talk, but I have to, like, for example, I'm sucking on a lozenge again, and I have to have a big thing of water. I try not to talk too much during the day. I
Right,
try to
right.
text and do emails as much as possible. I hate talking on the phone because it's
Yeah,
hard. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but we all have limitations and you have to accommodate for them, right?
Yeah.
And I think you do a great job. And what I think is admirable is it doesn't stop you, which is
Yeah.
really
Well,
admirable.
probably because I'm a jabbermouth and I'm obsessed with certain topics like this one. So it's like, well, if people don't want to listen to me, then they can go watch something else, you know?
I think that's
So
the right
thank
attitude.
you
But then you
guys.
worry about somebody posting saying, go see this person or that person. Just, I know
Yeah.
it's very hard. It's easy for me to say it, but I just
Yeah.
think they either are trying to be helpful because they don't know, or they're just being pains.
Yeah. They're just being
Yeah.
nasty,
And
mean
if it
people.
weren't that,
So
they'd find something else to complain about. So
yeah.
you're never ahead.
Yeah, somebody said my hair was a mess a few years ago, so I've tried to make myself look a little better. But see, I mean, haven't you started like worrying more, since you want to do YouTube,
Yeah, I,
like
I I think about it a little, but I taught for many, many years, and when the faculty evaluations come in, and you get 80, 100 evaluations in a class, and they say, something about what you did in a class, and I know I either didn't say that or I had a good reason for it. I think I've come inured a little uh, to those sorts of comments, and sometimes they comment about the way you dress, the way you look, uh,
mhm,
and I figure the way you look anyway, you can't change that. So either you're going to you know worry about the comments or ignore them. And the point is, how many viewers do you have and how many say anything? And you
mhm.
never get 1,000% of anything.
Yeah.
Again, I know it's harder. It's easier for me to say than it would be if I were living it. But, I was told by a psychiatrist once, and then I'll stop preaching about this.
Mhm.
And I don't remember which side of the brain is the emotional artistic and which side is the intellectual. I don't know which,
I
but
think
let's say,
left is artistic. I
okay,
think, but
okay.
what do I know? Okay,
This
go on.
this
Yeah.
psychiatrist told me, let's say left brain is the emotional, the emotive, the artistic, right? And the right brain is the rational, intellectual. She told me that when the left brain and the right brain get in a fight, the right brain doesn't have a chance in hell. That the emotions overwhelm no matter what we know and we think. The emotions just are hard to. It's hard for the intellectual, rational side to overwhelm the emotions when they come up.
Hmm.
So the
Okay.
little speck on the big whiteboard, is going to drive you crazy, even though the rational side says, "Look at the big board; it's beautiful." One little speck, and you focus on the speck.
Yeah, and that ruins your day, So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, we could talk on and on about how YouTube can change your
Oh, I
life
hope
or
not.
your
I hope it
focus or
doesn't do
something.
anything
But
to me.
no, hopefully it'll be a positive thing because
That's
to
right.
me, I still do it because overall it's been a positive thing in
Right.
my life. And I just love finding other like-minded people who are into the same things or want to talk about stuff. And it's cool to make these connections,
Yeah.
you know, despite people being in different countries or other states and, you know,
And I love getting questions because, I mean, when you do this, you want to be clear and you want to convey information and um, move whoever is in the audience forward. But even more so, I find questions really energizing and they push me to think about things I hadn't thought about. That happened in the classroom too. And that was terrific for me because I only have one perspective, one, background, and I can miss things. And I think it's just great when people ask questions and they make you sort of, think about it, or for me, go research more or call on other information I have. So I really find it really energizing.
mhm. Great. Okay. Wonderful. Well, shall we get back to this
Yeah.
reply brief? I mean, we don't have to go through it line by line or page by page because thankfully Mona and Nadine read through the whole entire thing
I heard
last
that
night.
last night. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was so great. I mean, of course, since it's my channel, it sounds kind of goofy for me to say this, but kudos to Mona and Nadine for reading it
Yeah.
because even today, while I was driving around, I was listening to them some more so I could absorb it while
Mhm.
driving. And it's so helpful. It's like audio books, you know?
Yeah.
It's
And
hard to just sit there and read it.
I think it's fun to read a transcript. When I
Yeah.
was doing editing production, when you did editing, you never proofread on your own. You always had a second person. So you were
Hmm.
reading back and forth. And I think it's a lot of fun to do it. And it looked like everybody was having fun on your show.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. I didn't think it would take over 2 hours though.
It's a
So
long brief.
yeah, it sure is. And then they had these footnotes that spanned more than
Pages,
one
I know.
page. Yeah, so we're like toggling back and forth and stuff and getting
Yeah.
confused. Yeah. So, well, what about, first of all, the change of venue argument? Like, what are your general thoughts on that?
I thought, as I said, I think it's a good brief. And I thought that they did about as good a job as you could do on change of venue. Um, they talked about the point that I thought they made that was really good, particularly good. I mean, they went. Let me back up. They did a good job of saying, look, there's all this pre-trial publicity and was pervasive. And in the jury pool, there were all these people who had heard about the case, and every single one of them thought he was guilty. That's a pretty good portrayal of what the community might have and be doing. But they didn't mention that Tallahassee is a pretty transient community because the universities, not only do students come and go, but faculty come and go, move on to other jobs. It's also the state capital, and people move in and out of the state capital. When the Democrats are in power, a lot of the people who are moving in are Democrats working in state government. And then when Republicans come in, a lot of that shifts. It's not like another city of 200 or 300 or 400,000 that's more stable. So they didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
The one point that I thought he made that was, pretty good was his contrasting publicity before the internet and before social media with what would have occurred when there were newspapers and broadcast TV. And
Hmm.
the algorithm that pushes you to the sites that, so it's a recurring kind of
Yeah.
thing. I
It
thought
keeps
that was a
giving
pretty
you
good,
more.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But overall, I think the other side of this, because the point is not how many people in Tallahassee who heard about the case and wouldn't have been able to sit on the jury, but whether the 12 people who actually sat on the jury and decided were in that category. And I don't think there's much he could say about that except to point to the two who they found who had misrepresented whether they knew about the case. And then he extrapolates to say if there were two, there probably were many. Well, that's a leap, I
Yeah,
think.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the first example wasn't even that persuasive because I think the first prospective juror that they highlighted merely said something about how he hadn't formed an opinion yet,
Right.
but he really had previously put something on social media saying if he were the Markels, he would want to kill Sigfredo Garcia or something. So I
Right.
was like, well, maybe he really had no opinion as to
Right. You're
Charlie's
right.
guilt.
Yeah, you're
So,
right. You're right.
but that's a good argument. I mean, I have to give them, they have to find something to pick on to help the
Yeah.
client. So it
But
does make sense. We know social media has totally changed the way people get info.
mhm.
So, it's nonstop like us every single day. It's like, ooh, what's going on with the Markel case? Oh, oh,
You're
look at
making
this
us sound
surviving the
like
survivor, oh, look at deep dive true crime, oh, Carl Steinbeck, or,
you're making all of us
guilty
sound like
nerds.
nuts.
Well, I mean, my friends and relatives think I'm sort of nuts for still covering this case and spending all my time, live streaming about it, but
Well, if you
and
weren't
going to
doing this,
Tallahassee,
you'd be doing something else. You'd be reading mystery stories right and left, or
or
something
watching
else.
Netflix. I'd be
Yeah,
like watching TV or
right,
watching skating or something,
right,
or,
right, right.
maybe
Yeah,
I'd
so
actually do something productive.
so I think, I think the arguments they made, or that Ufferman made, were as good as he was going to be able to pull from this. But I think the counter, which the state raised, and they'll argue at oral argument, is just more persuasive. And one of the consequences is, if he's right that this should make a difference and you have to have a change of venue, the practical effect is there'd be a lot more changes of venue. And that's a practical consequence of, you follow his argument to its logical conclusion. And it's not a practical consequence that I think an appellate court wants to embrace. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, the social media, it's national or international. So who's to say that if you moved it to whatever, Jacksonville, then those people didn't get saturated with YouTube videos and, Instagram and TikTok and Twitter X stuff
Right.
too.
Right.
So, I mean, those people would have gotten kicked off the jury anyway.
Right.
So,
And I don't live in Tallahassee, but my impression, listening to people who've been on some of these programs, is the publicity really wasn't pervasive until, and wasn't even much until close to a trial. And there was so much time between the trials. Now, maybe Charlie to Donna wasn't all that much, and there was publicity, on and off. But there are a lot of people who don't follow this at all. I mean, to
exactly.
take his argument, you'd have to believe that the jury in Donna's case was not neutral, and that the 3 jurors that we heard interviewed after Donna's case were all lying. They knew about the case, they were biased, that they couldn't have avoided the publicity about the case, and all 3 said they had heard nothing about it.
Yeah.
2 of them had moved in later. I mean, and I think the appellate court, the judges on the appellate court, know that the fact that there's publicity doesn't mean that most people in a community are paying attention to it.
Yeah. And in fact, those 2 younger people, they were so young. They weren't, well, the guy who's thinking about going to law school, he said he barely heard about it because he was in junior high or something
Right.
when his teacher mentioned it offhand, but it didn't register in his mind. He didn't go look for information. He's like a kid back then. So anyway, yeah, so I think this whole thing about change of venue, it seems like a loser argument, but
Yeah.
perhaps I'm biased, but
No, I agree with you. I think the striking of the veneer panel and starting over again probably has a little more legs to it, because at least there was some evidence from what they say several prospective jurors, but they can at least name 3 that they were talking about the case when they weren't supposed to, and that it was possible that more of the prospective jurors heard about it, even though they were asked about it and said no. That one seems to me to have, a little more merit to it. But note, to just jump to Donna's case, because I said when I saw the original brief that they filed, that Judge Everett in Donna's case would make sure that they didn't get a chance to talk to each other and ignore his instructions. So he had bailiffs in the room where the prospective jurors were, and he didn't let them read anything there, to just cut it off. So I jumped to Donna's case, but Donna doesn't have this argument at all. Whatever merit there might be to it, she can't raise it.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So that's great that Judge Everett had all these rules to make sure people weren't just sitting there gossiping and, talking about the case and being bored, talking because they had nothing to do. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I think
Okay.
that one has a little more merit to it. Uh, but I don't think that this brief pointed to enough, examples of where it happened and how it happened and what was said and who might have overheard
Exactly.
to really, really do anything about it. And then you have the fact that they accepted the jury.
Hmm.
Now, that's where I think Offerman, in one part, I think does really well, and that is to say, the Florida rule that says you have to put the request in writing and you have to remake it, at the end of the jury selection process. That part of it, I think he makes a really good argument. The reason why you do those things is so the judge can be on notice that this is an issue, try to take care of it at trial. And certainly Rashbaum made, or his friend from New York, Josh, what was his name? Josh
Dubin.
Dubin, made this argument enough times that the judge was aware that this was an issue and had a chance to think about it. But I think that Upperman in this brief made a good argument that the fact that they didn't do it in the precise procedural correct way didn't get to the underlying issue, which is the judge was put on notice and it was vetted. And therefore, the fact it wasn't in writing, I don't know that that's going to make any difference. I think he's right there. Whether accepting the jury should make a difference, I think is a different question. I
Hmm.
mean, I think you can accept a jury but reserve the claim. And I think that would be the prudent way to do it. But I doubt that the appellate court will go off on either of those when, as I fully expect it will reject this claim as a reason for reversal. They may mention it, but I don't think they're going to stand on the procedural. I think they'll go and discuss more thoroughly. And that actually was the place where I was amused by the brief, because they cited at least one case, Provenzano, there might have been two, where the state had cited those cases as the appellate court saying it's supposed to be in writing, you're supposed to repeat it at the end. And even in those cases, the court went on to consider it on the merits. But I didn't go back and read Provenzano, but I think on the merits, on one of them, they did not get a new trial because of the jury pool. And in fact, they quote from the court saying, because we want to be sure that everybody knows that we looked carefully on the fairness, and being sure to give the defendant a fair trial, we're going to proceed to look on the merits. Well, I didn't go back and look at that case, but it seems to me from that language, the case wasn't reversed because of the juries that were seated. So
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
think, yeah, I think he did a good job, but you can only do so much with a poor case.
Yeah, that's right. So, of course, you know, when you read these briefs, you have to read it with a grain of salt because a lot of times the attorneys are kind of being creative with their arguments. So we don't have time to go and research these individual cases to
Right,
see if it really stands for the proposition that they're using it for.
right,
Just as Joe just explained, sometimes people will cite a case, but then you're like, well, wait a second. But in that case, the situation was different, or this really wasn't the reason why the person got a new trial.
right,
Yeah, it's all about the details,
right.
right?
Now,
So,
I will say that's a bad way to make an argument, because the judge or the judge's law clerks are certainly going to go look.
yeah,
And if you leave that big hole, you make this argument, but there's a big hole you didn't talk about. It's not a good way to prevail. But
yeah.
you're absolutely right. A
Well,
lot of lawyers do it.
yeah, as you know, a lot of lawyers have to be creative, when you have some case with crappy facts, sometimes you have to be creative for,
Right.
uh,
As long as you're not
interpret.
creative with the facts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes I see that with some attorneys too. So, yeah. Okay, so what was the next big point
That
in
was
the
this
story?
is one that Donna also raised. It was
Oh, this the text
the text
messages.
that, yeah, that's right. The
Thank you.
from uh, Charlie to Katie to Sigfredo and back again, and Donna, and in some of this Donna to Charlie, that whole range. And both Charlie and Donna both argued that if you only get that one little section, it gives you a skewed view. And then it's easy for the prosecutor to say, look at all these phone calls. What could they have been talking about? They're obviously talking about the plot to kill Dan Markel. And that's a fair argument. But the other part of it, which is that the defense should have been able to introduce and have the jury read the context of texts sent from Charlie to Donna or from Charlie to Katie, not only over the period in which things got hot about committing the murder, but over a much lengthier period. That's where I think this argument loses volume, because first of all, I don't see any reason for the need to read the text. What you want to show is, what they're trying to show is this was normal. You don't need the text for that, particularly when you say you're not entering the text for substantive evidence, just to show that this was the normal way the family members communicated. And I think he tried to do a pretty good job with it, but I don't think it ultimately was very persuasive. And even if it was error, the other part of this that they have more trouble with is not only was there other evidence, Charlie testified to it, that there were all these text messages and it was normal, but they could have done more than they did, because when Corbett, I think it was Corbett that went through these, was on the stand, they could have asked and delved more. Well, you've got 40 over this period. How many text messages over the 6 months went from Charlie to Donna? How many went from Charlie to Katie? Was this an unusual spike in activity or not? So they could have gotten to the point they wanted to make anyway. And I don't know that, I'm trying to remember from the trial whether Daniel Rashbaum did much of that or made much of the case about it. I know in Donna's trial that her lawyers did more with, or tried to do that. So, what happens is, even if there's error, the question is, did the evidence get in another way? And the second part of that is, if there's error here, did you try to get it in another way, which would have been, admitted? So I don't think, I'm sympathetic to the argument generally that you can pick, a little slice of something and give a picture that's not realistic. But given that, I don't think that argument in the broader context works very much.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like the cases that they cite on that issue, it's not very persuasive. Of course, I haven't had time to read those specific cases, but I think in those cases they cited the information that was not allowed was a lot more important for the person's defense.
And not only that, in at least one of them, and I don't recall now about the others, it was one piece of information that was left out, or two pieces, which is quite different from Charlie saying the text messages from February until July all should have been in, all available to the jury to read. When the judge talks about that's not relevant to anything, and it's, That's a much stronger position for the judge than if it's two pieces, two things you could have, put into the record and said it's, it's only hearsay. It's only to let people know how he was thinking and not that it was true. So, yeah, but I agree with you on the evidence in addition was stronger than this.
Okay. So what was the other big argument?
Now, I will say with this argument, if I may, I got a little confused and I finally had to go back and reread it some because at one point, Ufferman was talking about the content of the messages. And I'm thinking to myself, what was introduced in that train car thing was phone calls, and they didn't have a recording of the phone call. So you couldn't possibly have gotten the content of the phone calls from the records. But what they were talking about was the text messages independent of the phone calls. And they wanted to introduce the content of the text messages to show that the content of the telephone calls wouldn't have been incriminating. And you can see how, attenuated that argument gets.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me try to scroll through. Yeah. So people who actually want to hear every single bit of this brief, feel free to tune in to last night's live stream. So, okay.
Are you getting questions about the brief?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you getting questions about the brief in the chat?
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of toggling, trying to scroll down to those headings.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where's
well,
the
and I,
heading?
They quote, I think it was it Sarah Dugan that they quote in the brief as saying, nobody in a text message is going to say, when are you going to go? Here's the money here's how much we're offering you to go kill and those sorts of things. So even if the text messages are innocuous, what does that show?
Exactly. That doesn't really prove anything.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was actually quotes from Catwoman in closing here. Okay, so, they're saying there was a recorded phone call from 2016 in which appellant Adelson references past extortion. But I'm thinking he didn't reference past extortion. He just made some offhand dumb comment.
Right.
So,
and what I'll say about that is they did a great job focusing on one thing because they say, well, there was no arrest then, so why would he be making anything up? But that was the time in which, the focus was on Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera and Catherine Magbanua. And Charlie had to see the writing on the wall that once Magbanua was arrested, they were going to come. Now the connection to him was going to be made. And he was trying to persuade her, you don't have to worry about this. This is how extortion goes. He was trying to, in a sense, coach her. So it doesn't matter that he wasn't arrested yet. What mattered was, the case was now coming in hot. And he had the worry. So now he's talking about, he knows how extortion works.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, even if it had been introduced, there would have been such a good argument that the state could have made about it. But I don't think it mattered. And mattered much, and he testified about it. And I think he was asked questions by Kappelman about it.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. Yeah. Specifically, the quote, "It's not done like that."
Yeah. And didn't she ask him, I'm trying to remember, but I think she asked him, so how do you know about extortion? There was some run like that. Yeah. If that's how you think things go, and it was in the context, I don't know how it would have helped him anyway, because it was in the context that that's how he knew that the bump was police, law enforcement, and not a real extortionist,
Hmm.
right? Because he says that's not the way they do it. But if that's the case, then why is he paying them? And he
Yeah.
also says, I was afraid and was paying them. I don't know how you can have it both
Yeah.
ways.
Hmm. That's right. Yeah. And he certainly did not seem scared of Katie or upset with her throughout this whole time period. He was still writing all these friendly messages, and
Right.
they
And
were like best buds.
you tell me, because you've got a really good feel for what happened in trials. I don't remember at this trial, it came out in Donna's trial, I believe, that Charlie sent Sigfredo a birthday gift through Katie, right?
Oh,
So
yeah, that
did
was
it come out in
through.
Charlie's trial too?
Well, did it come out in Charlie's trial?
See, I don't remember it.
I don't think so. And that's where I feel like the prosecution did get caught off guard by Rashbaum's, like, cliffhanger breaking news. Charlie's been the victim of double extortion. Yeah, because there definitely was a statement where Charlie was talking about getting a GoPro for Sigfredo. And then he also bought some sort of like gift cards for Katie and Sigfredo. He wanted to pay for them to go on a vacation
Yeah.
together, or maybe for her to go on a cruise with her mom.
With her mother, yeah.
Yeah, and he said something like, he's not mad at me, is he? During the Dolce Vita conversation. And there was a joke where he said, yeah, Sigfredo invited me to go deep sea fishing. He was joking. It's not true, I'm sure, because that's the way Charlie talks. But yeah, in hindsight, I'm pretty sure the prosecution didn't bring that up during
Right.
Charlie's trial because they probably were so overwhelmed that they weren't
But
prepared for that.
I think I heard Georgia Kappelman say that when they were sort of brainstorming before Charlie's trial with regard to what Charlie's defense could be, that they came up with something close to what the defense turned out to be. Now, that doesn't mean that they were able to spend a lot of time focused on it, because if you're doing 4 or 5 alternative things that might be going on, you can't focus on any of them as effectively as if there's only one claim that you're working with. But I don't think they were totally blindsided by it, because it was one of the things that they thought Charlie might try, because he had to explain away the stapled money.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So people are saying that Charlie also offered marijuana to Sigfredo. Yeah, I do remember some sort of phone call where he and Katie were referring to the drugs as a bonsai tree, where Katie kept saying, I really wish I had a bonsai tree. Jeez.
I don't think I could talk in code, because I think I would forget. They had so many codes running. I would forget which code covered what. I know I'd get tripped up. Or I'd have to
Yeah.
stop and think and sound suspicious on the phone. I mean,
Yeah.
one way or another.
Do you need to get that?
No, I don't. I
Okay.
just need to turn it off.
Okay. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you guys. You guys know the case so well too.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have our little
Now,
YouTube chat.
again, did all of this come out in Donna's trial, or did we hear any of this in Charlie's? Because as I say, I don't remember it in Charlie's.
Yeah, I don't remember the gifts to Sigfredo coming out during Charlie's
You
trial.
do or you don't?
Don't.
Yeah, I don't either. So,
Yeah.
well, I found it fun to read this brief, in part because it reminded me of how unclever this murder plot was. It's a tragedy, and clearly don't want to, minimize the death, the way the murder occurred, the impact on the families, nothing like that. But when you look at it, it was just, it was not a murder that was likely to succeed over time.
Hmm.
And I'm not even sure the fact that Mr. Geiger saw the car and intervened would have made it a different result, because I think the police, if they were doing a really thorough investigation, would have found clips of Dan Markel going to the gym. And if
Yes.
they did that, they were likely to spot another car following back from the gym. It would have been a different way to get at it. It would have been a longer way to get at it. It would have relied on the police doing a really good job, but I think they did a good job all along. So I think they would have gotten there anyway. And in any event, Charlie and Donna are relying on Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine Magbanua taking the money they got and walking off happily into the sunset. And even before the arrests, he was giving gifts to Katie, which suggests to me that he was trying to keep her happy because she might,
Turn on him.
undermine, his position. I don't know how you can decide you're going to commit a crime and say to yourself, I'm going to have to keep this person happy to forget forever because this person can really make it tough for me. It doesn't seem to me to be the right. Now, I don't want to advise anybody to commit a crime, but this doesn't seem to me to be the right way to do it.
Yeah. Well, this is conjecture, but I have kind of suspected that perhaps, I don't know, this is just a guess, perhaps Charlie wanted to kill off Katie, because in one of those wiretap calls, thanks to Fancy Fiction, we heard it years ago, Katie was very scared because the tire or the wheels on her car fell off. So her car broke down on the road and she was really shaken. So she called Charlie because it was Charlie that told her to go to his friend's car repair shop to get her car repaired. And, after she got the car, that's where the tire or the wheel came off. So, I mean, commenters and myself have thought like, could that have been deliberate? I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, that after a while, maybe he did feel paranoid enough to think like, well, I better cut off one of these train cars.
But, that's again, then you have to rely on the fact that the person at the repair shop is not going to talk. The police,
Yeah.
the
Well,
car,
it's a
the
good
wheels
point
go
of
off the
his.
car. The police will look at it. They're going to go to see where the car was repaired.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to me to be a good way to go about this.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Adelsons,
I
where
guess.
Donna was trying to bribe all these people in jail.
Well, that's
to
right. Look
lie
at Donna.
for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she couldn't stop.
No,
She couldn't
no.
stop doing all these wheeling and dealing shady things.
Go ahead. I'll write out for you the lies I want you to tell
Yeah.
about Catherine
Now write it
McBanua.
in your handwriting.
That's right.
Here's a notebook. Let's meet over here in the corner. Yeah.
I tell you, it's a tragedy, and I just hate it when I laugh about it because I feel really bad, but I don't know how you can't. Somebody could do a really great sort of dark comedy about this, because the things that Donna did and the things that Charlie did are just crazy. And I thought, and I think I said this, that the strongest evidence against Donna at her trial were things she did herself.
Yeah.
Wasn't
that's right.
evidence from anybody else. It was evidence coming from her.
Yeah, she dug herself into a hole repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what did you think of Trina Bernhardt's interview? Did you watch that?
I did. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched part of it. I think, in some ways, I guess I thought her demeanor seemed plausible, credible, but, some of the things she was talking about what Donna said to her, at least in part of that interview, the part that I heard. And, to believe her, you've got two people there who have an incentive to lie. And one is a convicted murderer and the other has 22 or 24 or 26
27.
convictions, right?
27.
27. I'm not even going high enough. Neither of them are particularly credible sources, at the outset. So if you're going to believe it, you've got to find pretty good corroborating evidence that the stories are true. Now, it may be that Chatty Donna told the same stories to 5 other inmates, which would help. And on some of it, I wanted to put a shoe in his mouth, that quote.
Yeah.
I thought that that one of the comments last night, was it last night or the night before, really made sense to me. That Donna saying that, I mean, Donna talks in hyperbole all the time. And it didn't have to mean that she wanted to kill Dan Markel, but she just wanted to throttle him and shut him up. And that was the way she said it. And it's certainly believable that language like that could come from her, because we know very well she's not restrained when she talks. So I thought the information Drina provided was really interesting. And should Donna's conviction be reversed, which I don't believe will happen, and there's a retrial, the state, I think, might go look a little more into what she said. She said, on the part that I heard, that the state told her not to talk about any of that. So it may be that they didn't have any corroborating evidence, and so better part of valor was not to raise an issue that the defense could appeal on later. So that was, and I thought the claim from Donna, even before Josh Zellman denied it vehemently, the claim from Donna that she'd been offered a 10-year deal and nobody in the family was going to be prosecuted sounded ridiculous to me. I could understand them giving her 10 years because 10 years would make her, 85? And so that I could sort of maybe understand, but giving the rest of the family a free pass, certainly I can't imagine they would have given Charlie a free pass. And I don't see why, in order to get her to plead, they'd give a free pass to Wendi or Harvey. It just seemed to me on its face not to be a deal that made any sense. That doesn't mean that Donna didn't claim it.
Yeah, she probably just made it up to get
Right.
sympathy, which is what you said on the SDS,
Yeah,
and I
right,
was
right.
nodding in agreement. I was
Yes.
like, of course, because she's so manipulative. She wants to be the victim.
Yeah.
So,
But she doesn't have a brain in her head, because if you want to make yourself a victim, you have to give a story that's plausible, and that one wasn't plausible.
yeah, yeah. So I thought it was interesting when Trina said that Donna talked down to her as if she was some stupid idiot. And I was like, I'm glad you saw through her finally, that she just wanted to use Trina and thought she's this like weirdo drug addict who's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't. She used, if you believe the evidence, it was Patricia Bird and Drina, and there was at least one other person in the jail that the state decided not to call for, we never know what the reasons are. So that would be 3. You are in a jail with people who want to be out, and they're happy to make deals to get out. And not only you tell one person, but you're talking to 3 of them. And then you think you're smarter than they are. I don't know. I don't have words to describe, and I don't know how you would explain how her brain functions, because it doesn't function the way I think most people I know, that for putting the murder aside, it just doesn't function. She doesn't go from A to B to C to D. She goes from A to B1, and then she veers off into Q.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a great question, and I'd like to get your take on it. Did you hear they're getting Georgia on SDS? Is that odd with a looming possible Wendi arrest?
I heard Joel say that he has a commitment from her. I inferred that it's a new commitment because he had her on after Charlie's trial, and she was interviewed. And then at some point he asked her if she'd come back on, and she said yes. So it could be that commitment. It could very well be that they've reached out to her. Steve Cohen has reached out to her and she's agreed to do it again. And if that's the case, and what she testified to, what she talked to him about the last time was simply general things. She didn't talk about anything particular about the case, and she didn't project whether there would be other prosecutions. It was pretty benign. It was interesting. She talked about her style is different from Sarah's style, and that Sarah gets into the details. That's why they had her do all the cell phone evidence and the tracking, the GPS and all of that. Whereas Georgia described herself as more big picture and not detail. So she said they complemented each other. So she talked about things like that, which for me was very interesting. She didn't get into the trial, anything else. And I doubt she would do it this time. So I don't think it means anything. At least that would be my guess, that, she's
I
just,
hope not.
yeah, I hope that
Yeah.
too.
Well, Maui
Unless she
said-
wants to get on and say, breaking news, we've just arrested Donna. And we're going to let
Or
you know
Wendi.
because you've been such a
Wendi.
great YouTube channel for us.
Yeah.
But then they could come on yours too.
Yeah, I don't think she'll come on mine, but I was thinking about sending flowers and treats again, this time directed to Georgia Kappelman, because I want her to feel the love and the public pressure.
Who did you send them to the last time?
To Sarah Catherine Dugan, because I feel like she doesn't get enough credit. So I was like, well, I'll just send it to her, but she could still share it with Georgia also. So, but I agree with Maui, because I'm pretty sure that STS interview with Kappelman was ages ago, back when STS didn't have as many viewers.
Okay. So it was before Charlie's
the
trial.
one with Carm, with Joel's mother. They both interviewed Georgia while she was sitting in her office.
Okay.
And she made some comment saying that even though she looks calm and cool and collected, she's like a duck that's rapidly, swimming underneath the water, and you can't see
right.
all the
I remember that quote.
and stuff. Yeah, that was like before Charlie's trial. It was so
okay, but
long
then,
ago.
but even
Was there
so,
another
if
one?
she was willing to go on before Charlie's trial, and they obviously knew they were going to be prosecuting Charlie, was it before they had arrested Charlie? Can't imagine that she would have gone on when it was an active
No,
case.
I think it was probably after Charlie had been arrested.
Was
Yeah,
it?
because 2022 was really when my channel and then later STS started really covering the Dan Markel case. So 2022 was Katie's trial back around April, May.
Okay.
And Charlie was arrested right before Katie's trial happened.
But that would suggest she was willing to go on the air and talk when she had an active case that she was going to be doing. So that would seem to me, if she's willing to do that, then the fact that she's willing to go on after a case is over before the next one stops doesn't say anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I totally agree with Dawn that I kind of wish she wouldn't do interviews. Let's just focus on getting this arrest done. How about it? And getting that trial. I don't want her distracted or have any potential problems from doing an interview. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, so can we go ahead and talk a little about Dan Markel's writings?
Yeah, let me just add before we move from this, Charlie also argued that if none of those mistakes were big enough, the cumulative effect of all of them required a new trial, just so we can be complete about what his arguments were. So.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so of course, it's sad looking back in time, trying to find things that Dan Markel wrote, because now it seems like so long ago. This is 2009. Somebody had a blog posting that you can still find online about Dan Markel's new book, which I'm glad I got a copy of it because when I Googled it recently, they're selling copies of this for $147 now.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I can't remember how much I paid for this, but I've had this for several years, probably paid like 30 or 40 for it
Wow.
used. Yeah, so I wonder maybe they're not publishing it anymore. Why is it so expensive online? So
Usually they don't publish because nobody wants to buy it, so it doesn't go up in price. You can
because
get
it's
it.
rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can only buy a used copy or something. So, of course, I've mentioned this multiple times, but in his book, for his portion, since he had two co-authors, he wrote for Wendi, my everything, my world without end.
Uh,
Isn't that sad?
Very sad. What
Yeah.
year was the book published?
Um, 2009.
Yeah, that's when the article is. So,
Yeah. So, but anyway, I thought this blog posting, the most interesting part is where they talk about Florida law. But do you want to pick up because my voice is faltering again?
sure.
Sorry.
The book is Privilege or Punish, Criminal Justice and the Challenge of Family Ties. And what they're talking about is some states, at the time they said 12, who either didn't, for closed prosecution of close family members for being accessory after the fact. And some of the cases are a son escaped from jail, I think it was, and the father hit him. Another case they mentioned was the Unabomber, where his brother turned him in. That was a case where the family member went ahead and put public safety and law enforcement over the familial bond. But they talked about police officers who've helped their sons escape prosecution or alert them that there's an arrest warrant and they need to run. A mother who came home and found a bloody body, and she helped her son get rid of the bloody evidence. And so what Dan Markel and his two other authors are talking about is whether it's appropriate to say that close family members shouldn't be prosecuted for those sorts of activities. They didn't do the crime. In these cases, it doesn't appear that they knew about the crime ahead of time, but they find out about it afterwards and they help their family member escape, hide, get rid of the evidence, all those things, which is in law called an accessory after the fact. You had nothing to do before with the crime, but you help cover up or you help hide your family member from getting prosecuted. And so that's what it's about. Dan Markel talks about the Florida law, which I'm assuming has changed since, because he talked about Florida being a state where close family members wouldn't be prosecuted for the felony. So I, this afternoon, when I should have been doing other things, went and pulled the Florida statute to see what the Florida statute says. And having pulled it, I didn't have a chance to read it really closely, but I did read it and I read it, I would prefer to read it more closely than I did. But as I read it, the exception for accessory after the fact in Florida doesn't help you if it's murder, if it's a first-degree felony, if it's even a second-degree felony. It's when you get to the lower level felonies that if you help your mother, your brother, your spouse, your child, you won't be prosecuted for accessory after the fact. But let's go to the Markel case. In the Markel case, if, let's say, Harvey was arrested, without regard to whether there would be enough evidence to charge him with murder or conspiracy or solicitation, all those crimes murder is the capital offense, and then all those crimes are first-degree felonies. He could be charged with accessory after the fact. The statute would not get in the way.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear, right?
Yeah. They have to have enough to do it, sure, but that's what the statute is. And they did an interesting job of talking about what the reasons are for permitting a family member to be able to help and then avoid responsibility. And they talk about well, obviously we can all see the sort of the difficult circumstance a parent or a spouse, or would have in having to turn in their relative, and that even the prosecutor in one of the cases said that the office had talked about it and they would look a little more closely at what they might charge, because they even quote him here. Not sure I can find it quickly enough, but anyway, that they were sensitive to it. And the authors said they had a lot of reasons for saying it's not good public policy, because they came out saying they think these statutes are wrong. And one of them was the disparity in treatment between close friends and family members. Your family member may not be close to you. You might have a close friend who really is. The close friend doesn't get the benefit of this exclusion from responsibility. And they went on to say, now, of course, this was at a time before gay marriage, but they talked about how this statute exalted traditional family relationships over, different kind of close relationships that wouldn't have constituted, they didn't say it directly, but husband and wife, it would have to be that. They also said that the statutes don't really anticipate that the crime might be one family member against another. So there might be domestic violence, husband against wife, and then the child or the brother or the mother of the husband helps hide the body. And that doesn't seem to be promoting family relationships, or different. It's exalting some family relationship over others. And they end up saying that while they're sympathetic to the idea that if you're a mother and you're put into the position of turning in your child or trying to shield her from the consequences of the criminal act, and that's an extraordinarily difficult place for a mother to be, society didn't put her in that place, her child did. And her child should be responsible for that, for doing that, and she shouldn't get, a benefit having put her mother in that situation. And now we're sympathetic to her mother for being put in that situation. So those were the reasons they gave. And as I said, they came out saying they did not think it was good public policy to have these statutes. And of course, it made me, and I'm sure it did the same thing for you, Judy, it made me think immediately of Dan Markel's case, because this position says, doesn't matter whether you're the mother of the murderer and you claim you didn't have anything to do with it, or you're the wife, and your family did things and you didn't know about them, at least that's what you're claiming, or you're the husband and claim you didn't know anything about it, you just helped afterwards, they're not exempt from prosecution. Mm-hmm. And so it's a sad thing, because it's of course, he didn't know that this situation might apply to him, but he certainly was out there taking a position that at least, you can say is favorable to his position. And it reminded me of Donna saying, Dan Markel would have hated this, as though she knew and as though she cared whether he wanted or not. But this is some evidence that he had a different picture of what should happen when you're being prosecuted.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. What a great summary. And thanks for looking up the law. Yeah, I did the cheap, easy route where I just Googled and I found this law firm's website with a little summary of some stuff. So let me just, since I already brought it up anyway, let's give some publicity for this law firm called Golden Key Law Firm.
Oh, was there two names and they're just fortuitous? Oh, no, they just picked it. I was going to say, wouldn't that be nice if one partner was golden and the other was key and they put them together?
General name. So it says aiding and abetting. Well, I don't think Wendi just aided and abetted.
I don't either.
Think that she should be charged with first-degree murder plus conspiracy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but would they typically charge her with a bunch of smaller offenses or lesser offenses in hopes that something sticks?
Well, um, I don't know how they're assessing the likelihood of a conviction against Wendi. As I say, I think there's enough. But what they have to decide is they have to have a good faith belief that the evidence is sufficient for a jury to convict beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they don't have that good faith belief, they should not be prosecuting, because putting somebody through, criminal prosecution, is not a little thing. And you shouldn't be doing it unless you really believe that the person is responsible and that you can get a conviction. Now, I think that's what they should think. Nobody talks to me, so I don't know if that is what they think. But were they to believe they could not get a first-degree murder conviction against Wendi because they just don't have enough, they move to conspiracy. Conspiracy in Florida only requires an agreement. Now, practically speaking, if you're going to prosecute, how are you going to show that Wendi agreed with Donna and Charlie? You got to show something, but the elements of the crime don't require anything more than the agreement. That's a much easier prosecution against Wendi. And then you make the same assessment. If you're the prosecutor, do I have a good faith belief that on the evidence that I know of, I could convict her beyond a reasonable doubt? I think the answer should be yes for murder one. I think it's even a stronger yes for conspiracy. If they feel that they can't get there with any of them, then you move to the crime you think you can do. And it seems to me accessory after the fact. It's hard for me to believe they would think they don't have a reasonable belief that she assisted after the crime was committed. Because I think there's sufficient evidence that I would say shows she knew beforehand, the vomiting, afterwards and that sort of thing. I think it also shows beforehand. But if you say, hey, it doesn't really show she knew beforehand, I really think it's pretty strong inferential evidence that she knew afterwards. And then she didn't go to the police to report. She didn't do anything to assist with the prosecution
after the so-called interview. Yeah,
Right.
but I think it's much stronger that she sent that strange text when the custody schedule had already been set, wanting to know specifically if Dan was going to be in town between those dates that he was ultimately shot.
Yeah, that goes to conspiracy or murder one, because that's helping with the crime at the time. That's not simply accessory after. Yeah, that's why I think there's enough evidence. I do agree that the hard evidence, there are no texts that she wrote. There is no suspicious sequence of phone calls with her. But I do think that the evidence that they have, if a jury looks at it and draws the inferences towards guilt, that there's enough to convict and it would hold up on appeal. But we'll have to wait and see whether the state feels that way. I do. And I've said this before. They're never going to, the evidence doesn't appear that it's ever going to get better unless Sigfredo decides to, give information, or Charlie's appeals all end and he decides to go after Wendi. It looks like they have what they have, and they may have stuff we don't know about. I really think they should give it a try.
Exactly.
I don't think prosecutors should be afraid of losing a case. A prosecutor who tells you she has a 1,000% batting average every time she tries a case, there's a conviction, is a prosecutor who tells me she doesn't take the hard cases.
That's right. That's a great thing to point out. Yeah. Also, I do want to note again for those people who still think that Wendi wasn't involved. Well, the state has named Wendi as a co conspirator since early 2022. So, why would the state be calling her a co conspirator?
We get this. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, why would the state be calling her a co conspirator if they didn't have enough evidence behind the scenes to feel confident in naming her as a co conspirator? Would they just throw it out casually? Like, hey, we think this person's a co conspirator, but
Yeah.
nah, she wasn't really involved. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. So,
Although to charge, they only have to have probable cause to believe that she was involved in a conspiracy. To convict, they have to be able to prove it beyond
yeah.
a reasonable doubt. But you're right. It is certainly information that says that they believe she was involved. Now, the other thing I will say for them is I think maybe the strongest evidence against Wendi, certainly when she testified in the Magbanua trial, and in Charlie's trial, somewhat less so in Donna's, is she's a terrible witness. So she gets on the stand and the jury is inclined to believe that she did it. And they're entitled to believe that because they're entitled to look at her and say, you're not credible. You know, we look at you and how you talk and we don't believe it and we don't believe what you say. She's a really bad witness, but she's gotten better. If you look at how she answered questions back when she was in Magbanua's trial, you know, all the cutesy stuff and, you know, quibbling about everything and driving you crazy and driving the jury crazy, I am sure she has learned from you, Judy. You've been covering this a long time and she's better on the stand now. She still does it some, but she doesn't do it to any, you know, she's a mile away from the way she used to be. And yet she's still not a good witness. You still listen to her and don't believe her.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
where I started on this song was she's not going to testify if she's prosecuted. I don't believe for a moment she'd get on the stand. And so when we're looking at can you have a good faith belief she'd be convicted? I really think you have to evaluate it thinking she's not going to testify. And of course, that means there may be some evidence that we know about that they won't be able to get in, even as impeachment, because they can't impeach if she doesn't testify.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. Yeah, boy, that requires even more thinking. Like, what if, what if she is on trial and she doesn't testify? Then
I'm going to do, I'm going to start this channel. I'm going to do an episode on just that. Here's the evidence. I probably won't get it all. I probably won't get it all, but here, then if she doesn't testify, is there another way to get it in? And is there enough? Because I think all of these things are really interesting to think about. But I think as you sort of think about how the prosecution has to think about it, because they really do have to take a deep dive about how is it going to come out and how are we going to do it. I think it would be interesting to do more of a deep dive about it. Now, you worried me because you said when you started your channel, you did these things and they weren't fun enough for, I'm paraphrasing now, that people weren't interested. And I thought, oh my God, now I'm doing one that just as what she said doesn't work.
No, that's totally different from what I was saying.
Because, oh God, thank you.
Because as long as you're focusing on true crime, people care about that, especially when it's a knowledgeable law professor like yourself talking about it. But I was doing more general stuff like applying to law school. Should you apply to law school? Different practice areas. Let's learn about workers' comp, or let's talk to this attorney about how he started his practice. So that was just kind of lame and nobody really cared. And I got just at most for those types of things, I might get like a few hundred views or, I
feel better.
Yeah, so don't do any general stuff like talk with a law professor about how to become a law professor. I don't think I mean, there might be a niche group. I mean, sometimes it's not just about the views, but feeling like you are helping people. So
Mhm.
if you're happy helping 200 people who want to learn how to become a law professor, then do it.
Well, I
You
wasn't
know,
thinking of doing anything like that. I'm doing what I just described to you. And after I heard you and misheard you, I thought, oh my.
no, people love certain true crime cases, and that's why I've been covering this case like crazy because I'm kind of nutty about this case and obsessed with it.
Yeah,
And
but you're so knowledgeable. And I really like your style of, and this is, I think style matters a lot too. And I really like your style in
thank you.
addressing things. I really do.
Okay, well, thank you so much because I've gotten lots of criticism.
There
I've
you go
blocked,
again. We're back to the
no,
speck
I've
on the
blocked,
white
no, I
blackboard.
blocked lots of people. And when I looked at my blocked people, I noticed Sandy Graper was one person I blocked years ago, and that is Dr. Graper's wife. So she was actually watching my channel years ago and probably said something so nasty that I hope I cursed her out. I mean, I'm sorry to be unprofessional, but
No,
once in a while, people made me so mad that I didn't want to just block them, but I felt like sassing back at them to make myself feel better. So I'm sorry I broke that professional veneer, but
well, I plan on my channel to periodically to do my pet peeves, and it's this sort of thing. This annoys me so much. I'm just going to share it with the world.
yeah, because, well, especially when you're first starting out, you kind of feel like, well, nobody's watching me
Yeah.
anyway. So sometimes you let it slip and say some unprofessional things. But then lo and behold, there might be something you say where later it's like, oh my gosh, 1,000 people watch this. I better be more careful.
Well,
So,
I do think I like your style, and I really like, and I've said this to you before, I like the humor that you bring to it. I like the comedy sketches very much,
thank you.
and I think it's very innovative to do it because I don't think anybody was doing it, and I don't know that anybody's doing it now. And and it would never have occurred to me to read a deposition, but I think it really works. And I really, reading the brief, it really works. And and I didn't even think about it. You could be in the car and listen, which would be a
Yeah,
lot of fun, or out walking, or something. But I
exactly.
really think it
Yeah.
works. And it's very innovative, or at least I'm very uninnovative, because I know I would never have thought about that. So I really
Oh,
admire, how you think about things and the diversity of what you do.
yeah, because I feel like, you know, well, since you're an educator, you have to make it sort of entertaining, right? To keep it
Right.
lively
Right.
for
Keep it
your
light.
students
Yeah.
and your audience. So you kind of think like, well, this would be more fun, for example, in the Dolce Vita transcript, to have Steve Cohen come and be
Right.
Charlie, and I
Right.
dressed
Right.
up like Katie, and we read it like that
It's
acting.
great. It's
So
great.
yeah, it's much more fun than just one person
Well,
sitting there reading, and
and
then
I don't
he
want to
said,
forecast what I'm doing, not that it matters, but
uh,
I'm doing one on the privilege against self-incrimination. I told you that,
mhm.
and those of you who don't know, I'm going to credit her if anybody watches this episode, because
Yes, we
Judy
will.
let me use a, a reading. She had a reading that she did with Joel Waldman, and was it Susan from
Susan,
True Crimes?
true
True,
lifestyles.
true, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the deposition of Wendi.
Hmm.
And it was a great way to show, rather than just say that, if she got on the stand without, the immunity, it was going to be all I defer, I defer. And it's
Or
hilarious.
I
I
assert,
recommend it
I
to
assert,
people.
assert,
I
assert.
recommend, oh, it's I assert, that's right. I recommend it to you because after it gets going, the only thing that happens, if you get it in the middle, you don't know what's going on, because the only thing that's happening is you hear Joel's voice say assert, and then you hear Judy's voice say I
Assert,
assert, and it
assert.
goes on and goes on and goes on.
Upon the
And
advice of
I
my
listened to the
counsel, I
whole thing.
assert.
I was just, And
Yeah.
I was enraptured by it.
Yeah, it brings it to life because,
Yes, it
like you
does.
said, it's not the same thing if somebody just summarizes and says Wendi Adelson asserted her Fifth Amendment right against self incrimination to 90% of the
Yeah,
questions posed
no.
by Kawas. Yeah. So, yeah, so it's really cool to have met other people who care
Yeah.
about the case, like Mona and Kathy
Mona's
from
great.
Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo, who were
Yeah.
willing to do these
Oh,
stupid,
I'd do it for you
stupid
anytime.
comedy
I
things.
can't do
But
the comedy thing. I don't think I'd be funny. But these reading the things, I
yeah,
just, that is certain. And you know what happened to me? And for anybody, and I really do recommend you go watch this, but I didn't catch it right at the beginning. So by the first time I listened, then I went back and listened to the whole thing. But the first time I'd gotten it after it started. And I'm thinking, what in the world is happening? Because you hear Joel say assert, you hear Judy say I assert, and then there's another question in the same thing. And I'm thinking, and
yeah.
it goes and goes and
Yeah, it was like
goes.
for probably at least a couple of hours, I would
Yeah,
say. So
yeah,
Kawas and DeCoste, I mean, Tara Kawas did not really mince any words. Like she seemed to totally believe that Wendi was involved, that she should be
yeah,
arrested.
yeah.
Yeah. And also, I did want to address what you said because there have been criminal defense attorneys who said that you can't just call a witness up on the stand knowing they're going to plead the
Can't do
fifth.
it. That's
Yeah,
right.
so that's why Wendi had to have that immunity
Yeah.
deal because
You
otherwise
can't
she
do it
would have
because if
refused.
you know that the witness is going to say that she's asserting her privilege against the Fifth Amendment, that that's prejudicial to the defendant or to the witness. So, and why bother? You know, it's a fruitless effort, and it takes up court time. So they won't let you do it. So there's a decision made beforehand about it. That's right.
Hmm. Yeah. And so that's why I thought it was important enough to make a short about John Laurow's little speech before Wendi testified. It's like, look, these are the circumstances under which
Right.
she is willing to get on a
Right.
stand.
The
So
thing
let's
that's
point
different
it out.
about Florida and Wendi is that in most other places, the state has to decide, make a calculus and decide they want the witness to testify. So the state grants the immunity. And that tells you that the defendant really has something she doesn't think she has to say because of her privilege. In other words, there's something that might tend to incriminate her, and the state agrees. In Florida, if you're subpoenaed, you automatically get that protection. And so you don't get to say, well, the state really knows something is up, and the witness really has the right to protect. You can't really draw the inferences well because she's getting it because of the subpoena. You can still get it, you know, a little less directly by Georgia saying, and you're testifying under a privilege, aren't you? You're under, and that, you know, what does it mean? So you're still getting the you're there because. But if you notice Wendy's answers, it always is, I didn't ask for it. That's what I get for this, which I don't think goes over with the jury either. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, do you want to look for some quick questions and then call it at night because
Sure.
I'm running out of water and it just my eyes are killing me. That's why I'm wearing glasses right now.
Well, I wear
I've
them
been
all the time, and
doing
I've
too much
discovered that my
reading.
right eye seems to be worse. And
Oh,
I only had the eye exam about 6 months ago, so I'm gonna have to go back in and get I'm sure it's just somehow deteriorated on its own. You know,
oh,
these eyes, every part of your body just goes on its own whim.
ain't that the truth? Yeah, I'm feeling it already. Oh, did you like the joke about dry eye syndrome in the comedy? I made a joke as Donna where she's mad that everybody kept complaining that she wasn't shedding tears during
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
the
did.
guilty verdict and the sentencing because she has dry eye syndrome. You
You
guys,
are really good at on the fly coming up with, you know, your facial expressions, you're really emotive. But the other thing is you're really good at coming up with something on the fly. I watched the one you did with
Mona?
Gossip Lies. What is her?
With Kathy.
She's really
Gossip
funny
Rumors.
too.
Yeah,
And
she was
she
Judge
could
Everett.
hardly keep a straight face when you came up with some of her answers. Anybody who's listening to this who hasn't watched any of those routines, I'm going to call it a routine, you're really missing something. They're really great.
Thank you. Thanks. It's only gotten a few thousand views, but then again, a lot of people were watching on Kathy's channel because we simultaneously live stream. So when you start your YouTube channel, if you want to do joint live streams,
I'd love to.
That would be great. So you get views, you get people learning about your channel, and it's
very
kind of
helpful. I appreciate the offer.
Win-win situation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about win on your side, but it certainly would be on mine.
Yeah, Donna called me Potuto. that was a joke, of course. It was all just improv comedy, but I couldn't help but seize on your name, Plays in the Dirt. So, yeah, but I thought it was pretty funny because on replay, I think Kathy missed a couple of my jokes. So let me ask you this. Do you understand the joke when I said I speak jive?
Is it? No, I don't. Unless it's gibbers, I don't know.
No, it's from Airplane. Did you ever?
Oh,
watch
I didn't know. That's the kind of humor I don't like. It's too broad and yeah. So
okay.
no.
I'm totally dating myself because I was thinking, geez, like somebody like my younger brother and younger sister's age, they probably wouldn't get these jokes because they're from like the 70s or the 80s. So what about when I said I might find a Trinity?
No.
Do you get that joke? Okay, well, that's because Katie McBanua's lover in jail was this African-American young lady named Trinity Russell.
Oh, see, that's really diving into the depths for me.
Dive.
You're really good at, all the details. I'm more on the Georgia Cappelman side.
Okay, well, did you get the joke about Carol Burnett tugging on her ear?
That one I got. Because I had actually written, but I'm into biographies, and the more gossipy, the more likely I'm going to do a biography. So I've read biographies of a lot of the movie actors and TV, and I had read a biography on Carol Burnett. So I know she did that to say hello to her grandmother who raised her. Yeah, that one I got. Not because of the show, but because of the biography.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Yeah, I can't believe Carol Burnett is still alive.
Yeah.
She's 90.
She married a younger man, so maybe that's helped.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, getting back to seriousness, though, I'm so glad you enjoyed a comedy because it really, I felt like we went all out. Kathy even had a black bed sheet that she wrapped around herself, and she had meat tenderizer.
The meat pounder.
The meat tenderizer that she used as the gavel, the hammer of boncation in the first degree.
I just loved it.
Thank you for appreciating it. Okay, so Dawn has a serious question. Could you elaborate on why Donna's appeal would have bearing on the costs hearing and why it would be postponed? Well, they just gave it. They gave the reason in the order.
And what did the order say?
It's very brief, but
because I didn't see the order. If you get a chance and can send it to me, that would be lovely.
Oh, it's just like 1.5 pages or something.
Okay, so what did the order say?
So because of Florida law, which says they lack jurisdiction once the person
once it's on appeal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's not just Florida law. As soon as you file a notice, the trial level court loses jurisdiction over the matter and it moves up to the next level. But I didn't realize it would affect a hearing on the costs of the trial. It would seem to me that's so separate from everything else.
Yeah, it just says, after the filing of the notice of appeal, this court lacks jurisdiction to hold an evidentiary hearing on the matter.
Yeah, what you know what the theory behind that is. You can't have two courts having jurisdiction over a matter. There's got to be one court that you go to with things. And this, if you're going different places for different things, and then you don't know, does this one fall in one or the other? So with the notice, it moves to the next level. But I'm still surprised that the cost piece would now, that the trial judge would be divested of jurisdiction, because it seems so, separate from anything to do with the trial. I mean, the appellate court's not going to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, also, I'm kind of confused. So this is where I wanted Katie to be on, but she said she had some family birthday event to go to. So hopefully Katie will come on later next week. So because the court, what do you call it? Court file already said the court costs are something like $2,600. Then Georgia Kappelman already said restitution was $723,000 something.
Right.
So what could this be? Something else?
But I thought that Donna was asking for a reduction.
Oh,
Isn't that what happened?
maybe your memory is better than mine. Yeah, but that makes
my
sense.
memory, like AI, often what is it? Hallucinatory memory. My memory does that on occasion. So
Okay.
I wouldn't go to the bank with that, but that was my memory of what's going on.
Okay.
And maybe
Well,
somebody
that
in the
makes
chat
sense,
knows.
because it's sort of like in civil cases where the judge could say, I'm awarding attorney's fees and costs. Then
Right.
you later can have another hearing where people bicker around, the nickels
Right.
and dimes, and say like, hey, I shouldn't have to pay for this or that, or I disagree with this line item. So,
Yeah.
okay, so we'll wait. It looks like that has to be put off until
the
after
appeal.
the whole appeal is
Oh,
done.
so we're looking at 2 or 3 years probably.
Yeah, probably 2 years.
Let me say 1.5 to 2. Let me not go crazy on this, but it'll be a while.
Yeah. Okay. Do you need to go? Do you
No.
feel like you're
No, I gave
wilting?
you tonight, so
Okay.
you've got me.
I feel wilting and my eyes hurt, but I
Oh, so
feel like,
that's it. You need to go and you want to put it on me. Is that it?
oh yes, Professor Potuto is feeling tired and achy.
No, I get more and more alive when I talk and
Really?
have conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm feeling like I'm dying here. So, okay, can Donna or Charlie still do a plea deal? I mean, theoretically, but I think it's unlikely. What do you think,
I
Joe?
agree with you.
Yeah. Because what deal could the state possibly want to give them? They've already been convicted.
Right. The only place where that might happen is if the conviction were reversed on appeal, and then the state has to thinking about retrying. You're going to go through all the expense and all the efforts. That's a point at which sometimes there's a deal made.
Okay, thank you. When do you guys think Wendi will be? Well, everybody keeps asking this, but
Yeah,
I would say by December 31st, and I do have this bet with Vince. So if Wendi is not arrested by December 31st, I have to live stream wearing a bikini that he chooses. But if Wendi is arrested, he has to live stream without his hat on and topless.
I think if you get to July 28th, fly down to Florida and do a citizen's arrest.
Do they allow such things?
I don't know if they do anymore, but I would try it.
Okay, well, Florida is kind of a rogue state, right? They have all sorts of weird things happening there. So what do you think, Joe?
We talked about this. I don't know when it will happen, but I think it will happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think the first point at which it could happen is after the judgeships in Florida and Tallahassee are decided. Mm-hmm. Because that would be the first place where I would think they probably waited for this. And then once that's out of the way, I think they should go ahead and do it. But
mm-hmm. Okay. Good question. Why didn't the prosecution put a wire on Wendi? I guess you mean, why didn't they wiretap Wendi? I think probably because back in 2016, they didn't feel they had enough to warrant getting
Yeah. You need
getting
probable
contact.
cause to record someone, probable cause that a crime was committed, and obviously here they could prove it conclusively, and probable cause that the person against whom the police action will be taken committed the crime. And so it's that second part, whether back then, and probable cause that they're going to find, because this would be a search since she wasn't arrested, that they're going to find evidence of the crime. So in this case, it would be probable cause to believe that something incriminating would be said by Wendi in a conversation. And back then, they may just not have felt they had enough, or they might have felt that the wires of Katie and Charlie were sufficient. Because remember, you've got to persuade a judge that there's enough to go forward. And Charlie and Katie, there would have been more. I don't remember how long it took before Sigfredo provided evidence. I think it was several months after he was arrested. But when were the wires on Charlie and Katie? Were they were later, weren't they? They weren't.
They were
Right.
around April. I think it was April through
April the
May
next year
of 2016,
of 26, and the murder was 2014.
14.
So at that point, what they have is Luis Rivera's information, which clearly implicates not only Sigfredo and Katie, but it also is evidence against Charlie, because they're talking about paying for the hit. I don't know that it's as direct going to Wendi at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, legal definition of conspiracy. So thanks to Google, I found the Florida statute here. So
that's easy.
Yeah. So what does it say? 2 or more persons conspired to commit any crime. Ooh. Okay, sorry. But of course, you have to have some sort of meeting of the minds.
Yeah, well, that's the agreement. Mm-hmm. At common law, conspiracy was an agreement to commit a crime. A lot of states these days, as a matter of the statutory elements, require the intent to commit the crime, that would be the agreement, and an act in furtherance, an overt act. 2 things. In Florida, all you have to prove is the agreement. That's the only element. But as I think I said earlier, in order to show an agreement, you've got to show that somebody did something or said something. Otherwise, how in the world are you going to show there was agreement to do anything? So practically, to get a conviction, you have to show more. But to charge it, you just have to show that there's probable cause to believe that Judy and I agreed to rob a bank. And that would get you the charge for conspiracy. Mm-hmm. And I think the part of the question was the theory of it. The theory of conspiracy is it's always more dangerous when more than one person is involved in plotting a crime or committing a crime than when somebody is doing it on her own. In part because people egg each other on. And on your own, you may think, gee, I want to go, burn that house down. I'm so mad at my neighbor. On your own, you're much less likely to do it. When you're working with others or talking with others, you give this false confidence to each other. And the theory is you're more likely to commit a crime. You're more likely to be dangerous. So there's a special crime for doing it with somebody else or agreeing to do a crime with somebody else. And that's conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last question. Who do you think came up with the idea of murdering Dan?
What do you think?
Let me think of it. I'm going to guess Charlie, but they all had something to do with it and agreed and thought, hey, this is a great idea. Let's do it.
Yeah.
My picture of it is
they didn't meet one morning and somebody said, let's murder him. I think they'd been complaining about him and getting themselves more and more worked up. And that would have been Wendi and Donna. And then because of Donna, it would have been Charlie and Harvey. And at some point, somebody said, well, if we murdered him, he'd be out of the picture. And maybe it wasn't even then said seriously, but the more they egged each other on, the more it became a plan. And if I were to guess which one said it first, I don't know whether it would be Donna or Charlie. I think I might agree with you, Judy, that it was Charlie, only because Wendi, quotes Charlie as saying, doing the joke and actually looking. But I don't think it was Charlie sitting in a corner by himself and then saying, hey, here's what we'll do. I really think they just egged each other on and they hit this, point at which they were all so frenzied about it. And then he made the suggestion and they all thought, hey, this is a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And remember in the Dolce Vita conversation, he told Katie, let's kill him, or we should kill him, talking about the undercover bump guy. So that's like his solution to everything. It's like, just kill him.
Yeah. And if he said it that way, I could certainly believe Donna picking up on it immediately and saying, let's talk about this, because he is in the way and he's causing Wendi grief and we want them in Miami and it's better for her career and it's better for all these things, and taking and running with it more seriously than maybe the first time he said it. But this is a good example of conspiracy being more dangerous, because I do think, at least in my view, the talking that they did to each other is what, created the plan to go forward.
That's right. They operate as one big unit. So they all just colluded together to act as a team. Yeah. Wanted Dan gone because he could ruin her career and take the kids. Well, also that, but I think it was mainly because she hated Tallahassee and she hated dealing with him and all the court battles and not having that autonomy to meet lots of rich, eligible men in South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So, plus Donna's need to control and want to raise those kids too. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I think I better get going because I'm kind of like wilting here. And
you look fine, but we'll believe you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. It's great to talk to you about this case. And so let me know if I can help you with your channel.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have you learned how to make thumbnails?
I haven't done anything yet. I'm still thinking about what it is I want to do. So.
Okay. Well, I think live stream shows are so much fun. That's why I stopped making discrete little short videos, because those take so much time, and then you have to learn how to edit them, which could take like 5 hours plus just to churn out a 10-minute video.
I don't want to do them taped. I'd much rather do them live. I really prefer the interaction.
Yeah.
It's fun. But I have to have a number of subscribers to be able to move to something else. I've got to start out a different way.
Oh, that's true. So you have to come out gangbusters with some really viral video.
So I won't do, this is how you become a law professor. That's not the way to begin.
That's right. Or some general, like I tell people, don't be narcissistic on YouTube. You shouldn't be like, all about me and what I ate in a day. Look at me going to get ice cream or getting my hair cut.
You mean they wouldn't be happy to know about how my day goes from the time I get up until the time I go to sleep? You're bursting every bubble I have.
Yeah, I was in this YouTuber support group before, long time ago, which I think are mostly a waste of time now. But this woman made a video about a boring day in the life of a married couple. I was like, boy, that makes me really want to click on it and watch you and your husband have your boring day. But I think you need to do some sort of catchy clickbait type video, like why hasn't Wendi been arrested yet?
Yeah.
Let
But
me
that's
tell
been
you why.
asked so many times by so many people.
But people will click on it, especially if you have some big unflattering picture of Wendi on the thumbnail,
Yeah.
with like big bold lettering. I can help you make some thumbnails
All
to
right,
start.
thank you.
Yeah, because it has to be catchy, like something that will grab
Well,
people's attention.
my undergraduate major was journalism, so I did do some stuff with PR and advertising. So I've
Yeah,
got some passing acquaintance about how that world works.
yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great. Or top 10 reasons why I know or I believe Wendy was involved.
Well,
You
we
know,
better go off because we're veering
okay,
into this.
sorry.
How do you become a YouTuber? It's not any
Yeah,
better
yeah.
than how
So
you
that could
become.
be a whole nother live stream once you gain all your
Yeah.
followers
Oh,
and stuff.
hopefully.
So, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks a
Well, it's
lot.
great to talk to you.
Same
Thank you
here. Have a
guys for
nice weekend,
sharing.
everybody.
Justice for Dan. Take
Yes.
care.
Bye.
Oh, and also Monday I have Bankruptcy Ben who has agreed to come on my
I
show.
saw part of that. I saw part of that thing he did because I had been wondering about could they get into the trusts that Donna and Harvey had created. And I was thinking, gee, I don't know much. I know a little bankruptcy law, and you can certainly get in federal court and bankruptcy with the right showing. So I watched a little of his, and then he did another one because he had gotten questions, and so he looked more deeply into the subject. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's great because once he did these Donna Adelson videos, he suddenly got thousands of views on it compared to, 15 views
Well,
about
I listen.
bankruptcy.
I wouldn't click on somebody who was going to teach me how to do bankruptcy law ever, even if I thought I was going to go into bankruptcy. And I believe me, I don't have enough money that it would bankruptcy would even be, a bother or whatever. Well,
Yeah.
I'll let you
Okay.
go since you're wilting.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Have a great weekend. Thank
You
you
too.
guys.
So long.
Take care. Bye.